Everybody wants to know how Kentavious Caldwell-Pope makes this team better. It isn't always in the big ways. Today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is October 16th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. If you're listening to this or finding this a little later, or you're just happening upon this when you normally listen, be sure to check out the NBA preview episode of Locked On NBA on this feed, where I preview the Magic with some of the other Eastern Conference contenders. But today on Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about the way Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is influencing the Orlando Magic without ever really playing many games so far. We'll talk about KCP's subtle leadership, or loud leadership, I don't know, today on Locked On Magic. Before we do any of that, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. We will get to the duo, the backcourt duo that we're all so interested in learning and seeing play that we haven't seen so much yet in just a moment. But one of the big things that the Orlando Magic were looking for when they signed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was they were looking for leadership. Plain and simple, they were looking for a veteran, someone who they knew they could rely on to do the right things, to elevate this Magic team in every way imaginable. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, yes, he is here to make threes, defend at a high level, but he is here to give this team that championship experience, to give them that little bit of championship knowledge, something that may happen on the side at a practice, less so than during a game. During a game, Kenny's role is really well defined. He's there to run the lane, get to the corner for three, be a shooter and a spacer to free everybody up, to be an excellent defender to spell up Jalen Suggs so he could go crazy on people. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's role on the floor is very well defined. It's defined well off the floor too, but it's all about how this team continues to expand and grow. It's all about how this team continues to mature into a team that will, if not this year, one day compete for a championship. We are not seeing what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is doing. Sorry, everyone on the team calls him Kenny. It's taken us back to. All of us here in the public are not seeing the work that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is doing. Plain and simple. He played one preseason game. The Magic have played two total. He sat out the second one. But even that, according to Jamal Mosley and the Magic, was a sign of his leadership. We can all talk about the raw things that we think a leader is supposed to do. We talked what Paolo and Franz and how they're trying to be leaders of this young team are trying to do earlier in the week. But Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's voice holds a lot of weight. It holds a lot of volume, even when he speaks kind of quietly. At the end of practice on Tuesday, the Magic, the buzzer usually sounds to signal the end of practice. Mosley blows his whistle. Everyone comes together. They have a brief huddle, and then they break and go off and do their own thing. This time, though, we all saw it. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was the one that called everybody in. Tuesday's practice was another scrimmage practice. The Magic have not played a game since last Friday, so they scrimmaged pretty heavily on Saturday to make up for the lost game on Friday, last Friday against the Pelicans. They scrimmaged again Tuesday as they now begin to set their sights on this final preseason game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Again, no Paul George, no Joel Embiid, but that doesn't matter yet. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, though, was the one that brought the team in. And you could see him talking to everybody. Now, the Magic tell us that this is a fairly normal occurrence, not the Kenny bringing everybody in, but it's been a fairly normal occurrence, and I can vouch for this, that at the end of every practice, the team huddles up in a circle, and usually someone says a few words, and someone else will chime in, and everyone talks about what they're seeing and what they're feeling and how the practice went. But you can tell when KCP speaks, it means a little bit more. Now, that's the big way that KCP is being a leader. That's the big way that he is imparting his wisdom, and everybody is hearing what a champion is saying. Two-time NBA champion, key player on an NBA championship team is saying. But really, the value of what KCP is bringing to this team, what Kenny is bringing to this team, the value of what Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is bringing to this team comes on the sidelines in quieter moments. It's something as simple as encouraging Tristan Da Silva or Jet Howard to run the lane, to get to the corner, to be in the corner and space the floor out that wide, to enable those driving lanes for Paolo or for Franz or whoever has the ball in their hands, and to be that outlet when they need it. It's leadership, like that clip that they shared on Twitter, that they shared on X by the Orlando Magic, where KCP is talking to Paolo and saying, hey, don't force things. I'm there for you in the corner. If you need me, take what the defense gives you. It's instilling that confidence in these quiet moments. And yes, as Jamal Mosley put it, KCP willing to sit out a preseason game, to give Jet Howard that chance to run with the starters, a huge sign of leadership, because as Jamal Mosley understands and everybody understands, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope knows how to get himself ready for the season. He knows what it means to be ready for the regular season, what it means to go through a preseason and be ready. He's a veteran. No other way to say it. And KCP is certainly well on his way to doing that. And again, I don't think we've seen, obviously, him fully unleashed. We saw him very, very limited minutes, very, very kind of limited usage and action in that game against the Pelicans last Monday. KCP understands that his voice carries weight. I do believe that. He knows he is coming to this team as something of an outsider, granted. Someone who has to kind of find his fit with this group and learn this group as much as they have to learn him. But that where he can help, he can help. Where he can say, hey, think about this, or hey, this is what I'm seeing. If he can steal a quiet moment with a young player like an Anthony Black or Jalen Suggs or Paolo Banchero or whoever, and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and communicate that, that goes a long way. Because ultimately, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has been where the Magic want to be, where every player on this Magic team wants to be. He has been to the top of that mountain. He has climbed and got the rings to prove it. I would not be surprised if he has brought those rings in. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope knows one thing about this group, because as much as he's left an impression on them, they too have left an impression on him. That this is the team that wants to win, that wants to fight, that wants to do all the dirty work to win championships, to win at the highest levels. And obviously things start with Kentavious Caldwell-Pope helping this young team figure it out on the fly. They may not get it all immediately. They may not have all those answers immediately. But if KCP can help them a little bit, get a little bit closer, then his leadership will be so vital. And again, it's not the rah-rah speeches. I think the movies do an injustice. Leadership is not those rah-rah speeches, to be perfectly honest. There is a time and a place for them, but most coaches will tell you they don't say anything super inspiring. At this point, everybody knows what they're trying to do and what they need to do to win. Rather, the experience that KCP is showing and imparting is those quiet moments on the sideline. Are those quiet conversations of like, hey, what are you seeing here? When he does this, you do that. It's those things that seem to be settling in and seem to be making an impact. Way early in camp, and we talked about this last couple weeks ago, way early in camp, the Magic said, it really felt like KCP was steps ahead of where everyone else was. That he was able to anticipate and understand and grasp things very, very quickly. He did not feel like a new player to this team. And that's not just talk. I have heard that from people who've watched practice, that it is very, very real with him. And that's why I'm not concerned over one bad preseason game, because it's a preseason game. We all know what that is. And this impact that KCP is having quietly throughout the roster is the leadership the Magic paid for. Is the leadership the Magic hoped to get. And while we have not seen the results match on the court quite yet, because he hasn't played enough, it seems like the Magic are getting exactly what they paid for in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Of course, they're not just paying him for his company and for his leadership and his voice and his experience. They're paying him because they believe they can have one of the best backcourt duos in the league. We'll talk a little bit about what Jalen Suggs has seen from the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope backcourt coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. I'm sure the Jacksonville Jaguars are hoping for a big return from London with a win over the New England Patriots. Patriots usually fare pretty well in London, though. They did well a couple hundred years ago. But you can find all these great NFL offers on America's #1 sportsbook. That's, of course, FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I'm sorry. I'm throwing strays at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm sorry. I find it kind of funny how miserable and terrible they are. We've all been there. But hey, the Jacksonville Jaguars actually favored by 5.5 over the New England Patriots in their game in London. You think I was going to let you slide Miami Dolphins with everything you got going on? 3-point underdogs at Indianapolis. And of course, your Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a big win get Monday Night Football. I believe that's Monday Night Football. Yeah. Get Monday Night Football hosting the Baltimore Ravens, 3.5-point underdogs against Ravens. If football's not your thing, and I don't blame you there, the NBA is coming back soon. And NBA has great offers for the Orlando Magic, including over under 47.5 wins, -140 for the Magic to win the Southeast Division. Let me just double check I had that correct. We're all the way at the bottom. Now it's -145. There you go. That's why I got to check these things. -145. And if you're looking to get in on the action for opening night, the Magic still remain 1-point underdogs against the Miami Heat. And if you're a real sicko, they do have preseason odds. They don't have Magic Sixers posted quite yet. The Sixers host the Nets on Wednesday before they come to Orlando. So you have that to look forward to. FanDuel has all these great offers and so much more, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Obviously, I think the biggest thing the Orlando Magic are really excited about with this Kentavious Caldwell-Pope signing is, yes, they want his three-point shooting, 40% three-point shooter last year. Not the volume three-point shooter maybe they're looking for, not the high-usage three-point shooter they're looking for or need, but KCP is going to help them with their shooting. Like, it's undoubted. If he shoots anything like he shot the last 5 years of his career, really throughout his entire career, he's maybe weaker at the beginning of his career, but if he shoots anything like he shot over the last several years, Kenny's going to work out fine. It's going to be okay. We're going to be all right with this guy. But the biggest thing we're all looking forward to is that the Magic doubled down. They essentially doubled down on their biggest strength. We are expecting that the Orlando Magic will have one of the best defensive backcourts in the entire league. One of the best defensive backcourts in the entire league. It's crazy to think about. It's insane to think about. Now, there are good backcourts. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Alex Caruso, or Alex Caruso and Lou Dort, however you want to call it, in Oklahoma City. Derek White and Drew Holiday certainly will have a lot to say about being the top defensive backcourt in the league for the Boston Celtics. They are the Boston Celtics. They're really good. There's going to be an argument about all this, but on paper, the Magic certainly have one of the top 3, top 4, certainly top 5 defensive backcourts in the league. But it's one thing to say that on paper. It's another thing to see it in action. And frankly, we're not going to see it in action in the preseason. Even when they're on the floor together, they're not deploying the full destructive might of this fully operational battle station. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? We're not getting ready to destroy Alderaan quite yet. We got to practice on that other plane. I'm sorry, my Rogue One references are a little bit over my head today. But they are working on it. They are beginning to learn each other, and very, very clearly, as much as KCP is talking with anybody, he is trying to get on the same page, most of all with Jalen Suggs. This is a duo that is indeed made for each other. They are guys that work ridiculously hard, take a lot of pride on their defense. As Kentavious Caldwell-Pope said, this is the first team he's been on that everybody loves to defend, and that probably includes Paolo Banchero. Hopefully it includes Paolo Banchero. Hopefully it includes some other guys on the team. But this is a team that is really all about its defense and wants to put their defense first. That is the big thing for this Magic team. They want to put their defense first. And obviously they did that by signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. But how is this going to actually work? Well, according to Jamal Mosley, Jalen Suggs has been picking guys up full court all training camp long. Jalen Suggs is going to be the pressure cooker. He is going to try and put guys under pressure, really get into guys, really be physical. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's going to be the curveball or the slider. Someone who, isn't going to be putting heat on anybody, but is going to still be a difficult pitch to hit. Still going to have a lot of break on that pitch. Maybe the baseball analogy doesn't quite work. But this is a duo that is still figuring each other out. And is still figuring out the best way to make each other work. Now, they know that each one of them has the other's back. When they need the help, they will be there. If they need to switch, if they need to pick up a different person coming down, there's every faith that Kentavious Caldwell-Pope can guard the best player on the other team just as much as Jalen Suggs can. And that's the real benefit of this team. Frankly, whether it's Jonathan Isaac, Franz Wagner, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or Jalen Suggs, all 4 of those guys, to me, can guard the best player on the floor. I am very confident in all 4 of those guys getting their licks in on defense. And again, if the Magic happen to run into the Cavs again, they don't have to make a choice of who they're going to guard with their quote-unquote weaker defender between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell anymore. If you're looking for, well, this is the reason the Magic lost in the playoffs, well, not that Gary Harris is a poor defender, but now the Magic solved at least that question when they get to the postseason. Perhaps. But it's very, very clear this team is still kind of figuring each other out. As much as there's this continuity, as much as there's this sense of everybody being on the same page and everybody knowing how each other plays, everyone's still getting a feel for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is still getting a feel for this team. He's still trying to learn and understand who Jalen Suggs is, and their relationship is great, but it's still one that's going to grow. And how this duo works together is going to go a long way to making the whole picture work together. Because after all, Jalen Suggs is going to be one of the primary playmakers. He is someone that is putting in a ton of work to grow and develop and learn to be a better playmaker. Jamal Mosley told a story about the scrimmage on Tuesday where Paolo hit a couple shots in a row. And Suggs understood, he kind of innately as the playmaker, let me feed Paolo. Let me get him the ball. Well, Paolo got the ball. The defense adjusted. Paolo kicked it back to Suggs for a 3. That's the kind of stuff you have to learn and know how to manage as a lead playmaker like Jalen Suggs is. And he's going to have to learn, and everyone's going to have to learn, how to make sure they keep a guy like Kenny involved on offense just as much as they're going to learn how he fits into this team's defense. Now, again, I would repeat this. We are not seeing the Magic as a fully operational battle station, to continue my Star Wars analogy, because I just love that phrase. The Magic are not operating as a fully operational battle station. They are at half power, if that. They're probably doing a lot more in practices and in the scrimmages like they had Tuesday than they are anywhere else. Jamal Mosley, in fact, said it's kind of weird in the training camp because they know how good their defense is and they feel like it's playing well. The offense is starting to figure some stuff out, or at least that's what they're telling us. We'll find out in a week, won't we? The bottom line is this. The Magic do have two very gifted defenders. But like everything else, you've got to build it up over the course of a season. You got to build everything from scratch at the end of every season. You don't just show up the next day and everything works perfectly. That's just the truth of it. That's the hard part of it. And the Magic obviously have their work cut out for them. The Magic obviously are still learning how to play together, even if they've been together for a long time. And obviously, they're still bringing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope into the fold. But this duo already feels like they're going to be everything that they promised and they delivered. We'll see again in a week. We'll find out in a week. Got to guard Tyler Hero, got to guard Terry Rozier, got to guard Jimmy Butler in a week. Got to guard Bam Adebayo, but that's not for Jalen and Kenny. We're going to find out a lot on Wednesday night next week. But there's still time to get everything in order, to get everything in shape, and to see where we're at before Friday's preseason game against the Sixers. ESPN started its NBA rank, which is an exercise to get you angry. So let's get a little angry. We'll talk about where they have the Magic coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. It is the most wonderful time of the year. It is the best time of the year in sports. Fall, October, you get baseball, you get hockey, you get NBA, you get basketball, you get the WNBA, you get college football, you get soccer. Everything's going on. And even though we're just little old Orlando, we got the Magic starting up, including Friday's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. We got Orlando City playing their season finale on MLS Decision Day on Saturday before they get at least one home playoff game. If they win on Saturday, they will be get a home field advantage in the MLS playoffs. Hottest team in the MLS, by the way. The Orlando Pride will be hosting their first ever NWSL playoff game coming up soon. And yes, UCF at home next Saturday against BYU. If you want tickets to any of these events or any other great event here in Central Florida or anywhere in the country, Game Time has the tickets for you. And with Game Time picks, they'll filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Game Time has so many great offers. Their app is super easy to use to find the events that you want and find the best deals. You'll see a little flame for hot deals on the market. And with their panoramic digital view, you can see exactly what the stage, court, field, whatever looks like before you get to the event. And they have amazing customer service. I had a problem. I went to a Rays game last year. I had a problem with the MLB app. I couldn't find my tickets. They texted me my tickets, made sure I had them on my phone, essentially in my pocket. They're not paper anymore, which I'm not a huge fan of, but they're essentially had my tickets in my pocket. They solved that problem for me. I could not speak any more greatly about them. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA at LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. It is that time of year. It is countdown season. It is rank season where everyone names their top 100 players. And a lot of these rankings have gone kind of how we expect. We expect that Paolo Banchero will be somewhere in the top 25, a surefire all-star essentially. We expect Franz Wagner to be somewhere in the 25 to 50 range. We expect Jalen Suggs to be somewhere in the top 100. And, after Wendell Carter's poor season, we're not expecting Wendell Carter to be there. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, maybe. But we kind of know and recognize that in these top 100 lists, while the Magic have a lot of really solid players, they still got a lot of guys that got to prove they can do it over and over again. These top 100 lists, these top ranking lists before the preseason are either about, I know who this guy is and I respect what he does year over year, or I'm hyped about this guy. This is a guy that I think you should be paying attention to. I want you to pay attention to. And the third thing that they're about is outrage. They want you to react. They want me to have a segment talking about this. So here we go. ESPN put their ranking out. They had Jalen Suggs like 96, 95, which is silly. They have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope ranked ahead of Jalen Suggs. Now, how they came up with these rankings, I don't think it's just one person. I think they did try to have a little bit of group thing. So maybe this is a little bit more robust than going to like CBS Sports, which I think it does have just a single person, or Sports Illustrated, which I don't know if they're even still doing this, but this exercise is meant to make you angry. And judging by a few Magic fans that I saw talking about this, ESPN successfully made you angry. And that's okay. You know what? Guess what? That's what this season's about. This season is about, okay, the Magic made a name for themselves and no one noticed or seemed to care. The Magic are one of the it teams. You'll see a lot of like The Ringer or, some of the kind of more basketball nerddom get really excited about this Magic team, but maybe not as much as the Thunder or the Spurs or the Rockets. Paolo Banchero isn't the household name he should be. Plain and simple. Like, honestly, he is not the household name he should be. He is one of the very best players in the league. There was a Bleacher Report article that came out that suggested that he is on his way to becoming a Basketball Hall of Famer, second youngest player that made that list among the players that particular writer chose. People are kind of sleeping on everything that Paolo Banchero has accomplished this early in his career and this early in his basketball life. The Magic still have to rip notice from people. And look, a lot of people aren't paying attention. They aren't on national TV. They'll get a few national TV games this year, 4 of them very early in the season. Hopefully they'll get some more added later on, so they'll have more than 5. But this is a team that is good. Everyone recognizes is good, but hasn't established themselves enough to be considered, this is a team we have to watch. This is a team we have to pay attention to. In fact, it feels like everyone's expecting the Magic to take a step back. Or, I'll admit this. I think they're at least as good as they were last year. That probably means they're at a 6 seed instead of a 5 seed because Philadelphia should be a little bit better. The bottom line is this. All of these preseason rankings, all of this other stuff, it's really about how the Magic prove themselves. And as much as we want this season to be about home court advantage, getting the second round, and it is about that stuff, and that stuff will accomplish the goal I'm about to set for them, this season is about proving that they are ready to do it again. That they're a team that you can count on year after year after year after year to give you at least this. And that's at least a playoff spot, a playoff berth. That's at least an all-star bid for Paolo Banchero. That's at least X, Y, and Z. I did the exercise already looking at the potential all-star team for the Eastern Conference. And it is a packed house. Frankly, Paolo Banchero's spot on the team should be guaranteed, but it's not. Bam Adebayo will climb back into that group. Karl Anthony Towns and Paul George are coming over from the Western Conference without the East losing any all-stars. Pascal Siakam, Jimmy Butler are veterans who, if they, kind of pace themselves through the regular season now, but they could easily be all-stars. Then the Celtics could get 2 or 3 players. Certainly Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, but maybe someone else sneaks in if they're really that dominant. At the end of the day, the Magic's place in this league is determined by wins. It's determined by where they sit in the standings and how they win. If the Magic are the 3 seed this year, and Paolo has another spectacular season, and Franz Wagner takes another step forward, when we get to this time next year, all these lists, Paolo will be top 15, all NBA type player. Franz Wagner will be top 30, borderline all-star, fringe all-star. Jalen Suggs will be considered one of the best defenders in the league. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to a lot of these discussions with the national media are having, perception is reality. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the narrative on this Magic team is certainly that they can't score, which offense sells. No one pays attention to defense except for the nerds like us. Perception is reality. And for whatever reason, everyone is glommed on to the Paolo's inefficient narrative that he has to break. And look, I find that criticism to be fair, but overblown. And I think that you got to give him the chance to get better. And when he does get better, when he does hit, he's going to be everyone's favorite player to watch. But that criticism is fair, and he's got to get there. The Magic have to improve to get there. And that's all I take from this. Like, again, I'm not going to dive into too many details because this thing is designed to make you angry. It is designed to generate a reaction like the one I'm having now. And I don't want to give it more breath than it deserves because we watch this team every day. We know how good this team can be. We know that this team is growing into something better. And frankly, I don't care about this discussion. I want to see them on the court. Let your play do the talking because nothing shuts up critics more than winning. And the Magic are going to do a fair amount of that this year. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA season previews on the Locked On NBA Network. From East and West contenders to the potential tanking teams, this 6-episode series with everything you need to know about the NBA season. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, if you missed it, if you just clicked on the next episode, go back to the previous episode on the Locked On Magic feed to get the East contenders episode or the East middle class episode, where we talk with Locked On Pacers, Locked On Hawks, Locked On Heat, Locked On Hornets as well, about all things in the East's middle tier, which the Magic are currently placed at. And like I say on that show, it's my second time ever being in that East middle tier. I'm just happy to be there. Great NBA preview. Had a great discussion with those guys. Check it out on the feed as well. But that's going to do it for me today. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we'll talk a little bit more about where the defense is at. We'll chat with Jonathan Isaac at practice on Wednesday. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.